an adult problem nobody prepared you for. Story 1. How hard it is to meet people sustain relationships. When you're young, you are constantly surrounded by people your age, going through on essentially the same schedule as you. But once you're an adult, it's really hard to meet people in between the daily grind, and even harder to plan things with people you do know because they are also living their own lives. Story 2. How much you have to sell yourself. In my younger years, it was enough to just do the work well because the teacher has to grade your work. As an adult, your boss and interviewers may not even look at it, let alone understand what you did. Story 3. How much of your time revolves around eating and/or making food, cooking, washing dishes, cleaning sinks, even just selecting what to eat? So much time. Story 4. Elderly parent losing their mind due to dementia and needing care. But nursing homes are $7K per month. In-home nurses are $3K per month. Yeah, that's a problem that no one could have prepared me for. Edit to add, I found my answers, and my parent is cared for now. But the path leading up to the answers was a terrible and scary path. Story 5. Keeping a job. There's that honeymoon period once you start the job, but then as the days turn into months, and the months turn to years, you look in the mirror and say, is this it? This is all life has to offer? Story 6. How boring being a parent can be. Like, my kids are my life and I love them, but sometimes I don't want another conversation about Minecraft or Halloween decorations. Story 7. How much of my free time revolves around food? Grocery shopping, actually cooking, cleaning up afterwards. It takes up a stupid amount of my time. It highlights to me that rich people get so much more time than us poors. Story 8. They said study now and plays games later when you've made it. I've made it, but I don't have the time anymore, Dad. Play your games, kids, they lying to you. Story 9. Getting laid off. Everyone's working, doing their thing. Workload fluctuates and slows down after the pandemic. The expectation is for us to give 2 weeks notice when we leave, but I'll be damned if I didn't get a 6-hour heads up that my computer would lock at the end of the day, and my severance check would be in the mail in a week. Story 10. Feeling so behind compared to others. I have my associates, but it doesn't really do anything for me, and people my age are getting into their careers and I have no clue what I want. Story 11. Just how boring most things are. The days blur together and the next thing you know, your body hurts everywhere all the time and you can't remember yesterday. But you remember 40 years ago like it was yesterday. Story 12. Nobody told me socializing was a life skill and not just an entertainment activity. As an ostracized kid, I always figured I'd have time to figure out how to find decent people as an adult. I didn't know the barriers I created for myself would impede my daily life and career so much. Things you never think of, like, how am I going to get home from this dental appointment if I'm still affected by anesthesia? Story 13. Little kids don't have an off button, so you go to work, come home to work more, put them to bed for them to wake up throughout the night, wake up to take them to daycare so you can repeat. For like years. If you're under 30, you should not have a child IMO. I'd also forego children if not in a 2-person relationship and without a support group. I don't get how people can do it. Story 14. How shitty people are. I should not have had to walk around my college campus and worry about getting punched by some I don't know because he was having a bad day. Story 15. The crushing realization that this is all there is and the crippling depression that follows. You spend years getting a degree, or even if you are in college, working on the side. You slowly realize and question what you're doing. You go into a job that at first you really enjoy, but as the months turn into years and years turn into decades, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and it just gets boring. The pride you had in your job is long dead, and the thought that this all there is, until you either die or save up enough to retire. But by the time you save up enough to retire, you'll be too old to be able to enjoy much. Story 16 IDK. If anyone could have prepared me for it, but I was definitely not prepared to be diagnosed with a chronic illness, even before I turned 30. Specific illness is a typical part of adulthood, as in, we can get sick at any time and there's no age bar. But I personally thought I still had time before I got sick. And to have a condition, fibromyalgia, that I can't explain to anyone because it's not as straightforward, is a whole different frustrating element that makes me want to shut myself off from the world. I'm in my ranting mood today, apparently. Story 17. Managing finances. I learned so much insignificant garbage through all of my education that means absolutely nothing after graduation. I think it would be difficult to do an entire semester on it, but there are other topics that can be added to the Welcome to the Real World class. Story 18. Your parents being way less emotionally mature than you realized, or adults in general who you grew up thinking were intelligent, thoughtful, and I-formed. It's shocking when they realize just how clueless they actually are. Story 19. That the tattletales in elementary school actually got well-compensated jobs in a field called HR, and will still try to you out of money or a career advancement. They never changed, and there's an actual job for these people. Story 20. Being alone. I don't mean absolutely no one. I still have family in my town. I mean having the feeling of no one for true companionship. It's gotten to the point of trying dating apps, and that tends to ruin my self-confidence enough where in-person meeting is beyond stressful. Story 21. Let's be honest. How many of us would have listened to our parents if they tried to prepare us? When I was younger, I was convinced my parents were idiots. It's amazing how smart they became as I got older. Story 22. Figuring out what to make for supper. Trying to change it up so you aren't eating the same 5-10 meals all the time. And trying to plan meals ahead of time so you can use the same ingredients in different enough meals. Just writing this is exhausting. Story 23. How many people are just flat out terrible and selfish people? I'm routinely amazed at how many will steal, cheat, lie, and screw anyone else over with no remorse in order to get a tiny advantage or benefit, no matter how fleeting. Story 24. The realization that time starts moving much faster and more progressively day by day after leaving high school, and that if you don't take moments to appreciate the moments, then you'll find yourself reminiscing a bit too much. Story 25. Living with regret. Whatever decision you make has an opposite that you will often wonder about. Learning to live with it is something I didn't consider. Story 26. Just how stupid people are. When you're young, you think adults are wise and smart. Turns out most people are just disturbingly stupid and dangerously susceptible to misinformation. Story 27. Loneliness. I have friends who I don't get to see much because of our conflicting schedules. Work colleagues have their own things going on, and I don't feel connected to them. Had to move around for work, and I don't know my neighbors. And we're all so busy trying to survive. Meeting people romantically seems, at age 45, to a monumental task. Story 28. Seeing my partner suffering in the hospital. Never gets any easier. That, and seeing people in authority dehumanizing my partner and others. Dystopian stories don't quite prepare anyone to see how insidious it can be. Story 29. Widowhood. Nobody ever knows how long forever is when you see the happily ever afters in movies. I had it, and I lost it. 5 years later. I'm still depressed and sad, and I'll be spending my life alone, through the scariest time North America has ever experienced. Story 30. 79M here. No one ever warned me how hard it would be to use suppositories for my hemorrhoids when I tend to follow through the buggers just won't stay in there. Any idea how embarrassing it is to be walking along and a shitty suppository falls out the bottom of the leg of your slacks? Story 31. That living for the weekends makes your precious years fly. Stop and smell the roses means nothing without perspective. I use my neighbor's cat for this purpose. She's really friendly, but I used to hate cats. One day, I decided to crouch down and pet her. I'm not a cat person now, but I am beginning to understand the value of these little wholesome moments. Just slow down a little. Story 32. That every day feels the same and feels so pointless. It's so boring working every day to barely scrape by paycheck to paycheck. I just want a vacation, but I can't afford one. Story 33. If you fall, you can actually get hurt. I slipped on ice in my driveway a couple years ago. Didn't feel a thing until 5 minutes later, until my entire left side, from head to toe, was screaming in pain. I tore some stuff in both my legs. I had no idea until I couldn't get back off the couch. Used to be, all I had to worry about was a twisted ankle. Now I have to go through massaging any injury until my body stops screaming, "No, stupid, you live here now." Ain't right. Failing. The constant failure at both big and small things, and how much it can crush your self-worth until you don't even feel worthy of having a life, let alone living it happily. I have no clue how to keep going when good things are so few and far between. Story 34. Realizing your parents won't always be there. Obviously, this kind of depends on your relationship with your parents, and of course, you understand that we all die eventually. I'm in my mid-30s and one of my parents' health has started to decline, and it's been really hitting me hard. Story 35. Managing your health insurance. Many of their processes are deliberately designed to confuse and disadvantage you. Even simple interactions can turn into time-wasting, soul-sucking activities. Whenever I feel like taking my eye off the ball, I remember this is their endgame. Story 36. How you can't just have fun and get it together later so easily as you can at 18, no debt, and minimal responsibilities. I am trying to go back to school to chase my dream, and it is insanely difficult. Story 37. Groceries. When you are an adult living on your own, you never get to come home and just open up the pantry and grab a snack. You need to think in advance, go to the store, and decide there what kind of snack you want. Also, dinner. Every day you have to come up with something to eat. But hold on. Don't be buying just a load of now that you can, because you'll grow fat real quickly. Story 38. How to console your teenager when someone you didn't like in the first place dumps them. It feels like knowing the end of the movie, and your teen has only just started watching. The first breakup after your first love sucks. But I bet there's a lot of people out there who are grateful that their very first serious relationship didn't pan out. I know I'm glad that mine didn't last, but you can't just say that to your kid. You have to hold space for them and know when to shut your mouth. It's hard seeing them in pain, though. Story 39. I know this sounds needlessly political and disingenuous, but seriously, no one prepared me for the collapse of political morality, the age of Trump, and the rise of idiocracy. I grew up in a world where some things were a given, like basic competency, decency, and government safeguards. Now I feel as though anything can be taken away at any time. We shouldn't live like this. Story 40. Becoming a father. I expected the tiredness and sleep deprivation. I expected the reduced opportunities to have with my wife. I expected the expenses. I expected the loneliness. I kind of like it. I have ADHD. What I did not expect was the mind-blowing boredom of caring for my son. I don't mind doing all the active tasks in the house. I love my son. That said, 18-month-olds are just not very interesting. Toddlers are all about repetition. After an hour, my brain is ready to go in so many directions. But I can't because I am watching him. Story 41. Feeling so lonely while married. I know I love him and he loves me, but we both have such crazy schedules it doesn't feel like we're a couple or life partners. More like roommates discussing what bill is due or what activity the kids have next. IDK, I miss feeling like I have a companion through. Now it feels like I'm just another obligation to tend to. Crazy thing is I know I'm not the only spouse that feels this way. It's just the stage of life we're in. Story 42. Networking and scheduling. No one tells you just how crucial it is to be able to make contact and become a contact, and also how much stress you save by organizing your time and effort, regardless of your line of work. Story 43. Staying out of the trap of TV internet. When I was a kid, I didn't understand why my parents just vegged so much. Their lives just slipped away. It's easy to jump into a routine of rinse and repeat. It takes real effort to have hobbies, do things, grow past your 20s. Story 44. Hormonal changes as men and women age, and the effect on the marriage relationship. It's so easy to point fingers and bring judgment on couples when things fail, but when those changes happen and not voiced, intimacy dies silently. Libidos are either strong or non-existent depending on the person. Requests are denied, advances stop. Insecurity and questioning lack of desire can cause emotional physical cheating. Then, the marriage ends due to the couple basically being roommates. If this is happening, check in with both spouse doctors. Story 45. If you're disabled but aren't in a wheelchair, blind, or terminally ill, you're employment-wise. No one gives a if every moment of your life is spent in severe pain if they can see the reason why, and you probably won't qualify for disability. Story 46. The rise of fascism and Nazis taking over the government and immediately going toward rounding up people, including the mentally ill, and putting them in camps for unspecified amounts of time with zero oversight and zero accountability to the judiciary branch, or really anyone. I was taught how all those lessons were already learned from WW2, not what to do when it happens. The only thing I learned was that appeasement doesn't work and is like the give a mouse a cookie story where it is never enough. They will always come for more. Story 47. Watching a country I grew up thinking was stable, powerful, and plentiful be taken over by the billionaire class and milked dry at the hands of oligarchs who claim that the problem is poor people, immigrants, and queer people. Story 48. When I was a kid, I thought adults pretty much had everything figured out, and it was simply my job to learn it. I've come to realize most adults are a mess and know next to nothing. Story 49. When I was in high school and college, your social life is basically laid out for you. You're surrounded by a bunch of young people with lots of free time and common interests. Then you start your career and suddenly you have limited free time and often nothing in common with your colleagues. You dedicate time and effort to being social, and there's no guarantee it will matter, because you and or your friends might be starting families or traveling for work, etc. Dating as an adult is similar. Story 50. How idiotic most adults are. As a kid, I used to listen to the adults talk and think, Geethat is one smart person. Then you meet them as an adult and no one prepares you to deal with the stupidity. Story 51. The high school games and popularity contest in the work environment. I thought the BS would end after high school. I was way wrong and have never been able to conform to it. Story 52. How little time you have for yourself. You work for 8 hours, get home, make dinner, clean up the kitchen, and then you have like 1-2 hours before you need to go to bed so you can do it all over again. Then the chores pile up so you have to waste a big chunk of the weekend as well. I don't understand how people can work, have kids, keep their home tidy, and go to the gym and get a good night's sleep. Like how? Story 53. Living paycheck to paycheck. Man, as a kid, even when we were broke, I still had cereal in the morning, lunch, and dinner. I had love from mom and dad. As an adult, I'm so thankful to not have kids cause, man. Owning a house, grabbing lunch and dinner is crazy expensive. I realize this sounds so first world, but I stress about not being able to make it for a month or two and just getting lost in debt. I'm barely scraping by. Haven't had a vacation in 5 years. Don't see one soon either. It's scary and stressful. Story 54. How much adults love to disagree, fight, and be undivided. How much adults act like little children where people can't say their own opinion without there being a fight or killing. All because you disagree with me, how unified we are. And as we get older, how less of a community we are and how everybody is everyone's enemy. Story 55. Justice inequality. School drills into us land of the free but forgets to tell us that Mr. Moneybags can park wherever because he can afford the ticket without consequences. Or to sign away 60,000 deaths. But it's okay, because it was pen and paper makes me want to revisit the French Revolution for some inspiration on how we can fix it. Story 56. Hip pain from sitting cross-legged too much. Now, if I accidentally do it for more than 5 minutes, my hip hurts all day. It's the muscles or something. Kids, don't sit cross-legged. Story 57. Watching people I know and respect regurgitating propaganda. Demonstrably false. Obvious statements that they eat hook, line, and sinker because their team said it. We learned about this in school, but I thought it would be way less potent with basic education. Story 58. How much employment relies not on your qualifications and skills, but who you know. I had no idea networking would be the most essential part of moving up the ladder. Story 59. As a 40-something woman, no older female relatives prepared me for perimenopause or menopause. I'm in the throes of peri right now, and I could really do without the hot flashes, joint pain, worsening mental health symptoms, and insomnia, all while still having a period. Fun times. Story 60. To all of you saying making friends, I'll be your friend. I know it's rough and online isn't as meaningful as in-person friendships, but friends are friends, right? Let me know. Story 61. The amount of time and effort spent on food. Deciding what to eat, grocery shopping, food prepping and organizing, cooking, eating, doing the dishes, cleaning the kitchen. 3 times a day. And then add in doing it for your partner or kids, etc. And then worrying if you're eating the right stuff. Am I eating enough whole foods? Are these vegetables covered in pesticides? Is milk actually good for you? Are seed oils ruining my health? It's endless. Story 62. Not sure if it was mentioned, but when you realize all of the relatives you grew up with have passed away, those holidays you spent with them when everyone was chatting, snacking, laughing. Then, to realize you and your siblings are the only ones left. Story 63. How kissing and making up rumors gets you further than hard work at a corporate job. And I don't kiss, so I see my peers get recognized a lot by doing the least amount of work. Story 64. When you get older as a man, nobody ever hugs you. I make it a point to try to hug every guy I know over 40 because I know until I see them again that might be the last hug they get. Story 65. Not having friends. Adult life is very secluded when making friendships and scheduling time to hang out is basically impossible. I saw my best friend twice last year because we live on opposite sides of our state. Story 66. The absolute mind-blowing stupidity of other people. I believed bone deep that being an adult was super cool and adults enjoyed being adults. Maybe someone did tell me that many adults are giant toddlers who lie and cheat to get their way, but I didn't register it. Story 67. How tired I would be and still get up, work, work out, grocery shopping, meals, children, laundries, family visits. I just want to be alone for a day once in a while. Story 68. If you date people with debt and bad credit, it can quickly become your problem as your relationship progresses. I did not grow up with money, so when I finally had some, I thought I was supposed to help people in need dig out. Obvious, right? Well, this seems like a nice thing to do, but it's also a complex web of psychology on both ends, regardless of intentions. Several times I was pretty naive about this, and it messed up some great friendships. Story 69. That I'm constantly going to be maintaining everything in my life from the car to the dog to the dishes, the cooking, the laundry. It's so much I feel like I can't even type it all out here. If I'm not working, sleeping, or shitting, I'm maintaining something. Story 70. We are taught skills that can help us make money, but nobody prepared about how to behave when we have more less money, how to manage it, handling taxes, tracking expenses, credits, etc.